Well, there's been a lot of speculation as to whether or not it was the HAARP technology which was used to, in fact, create some of the natural disasters that we've seen recently.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what I was saying before about the HAARP technology. I have heard some reports of people questioning it because quakes that are caused by HAARP are usually a signature 8.6 earthquake, and the quake that hit Haiti was a 7.0 earthquake. But then again, most quakes that have been generated by HAARP, people will see a little, like an aurora effect in the sky an hour before the quake, and then the quake will happen. And when you look at the data coming out of HAARP, there's only a small amount of strangeness in the data coming out of HAARP at the time. When you look at the data coming out of HAARP for Haiti, you find that it went for 2 days. There were some really, really strange things and some strange frequencies coming out of the HAARP facility for 2 days before the quake at Haiti, and then it stopped 15 minutes before. So this could have been a new thing they were trying. This may have been necessary to control the strength of the earthquake, which would mean the quake was only 7.0 instead of 8.6. I mean, that's speculation, of course, but it is interesting that there were different wave signatures coming out of HAARP for this quake than what there were for any others. So that could explain that. Of course, if they had hit Haiti with an 8.6 quake, Haiti probably wouldn't be there anymore. So it would be necessary to do a reduced quake, as we saw there. So it's very, very controversial, but it's quite feasible that it was HAARP when you look at all the data.
Well, it's interesting, I think, that when you look at HAARP, people think of it as being the one location, but it seems to me that these arrays are being built in more and more locations than just the one that is obvious in Alaska, and that might have something to do with that giant energy spiral that appeared over Norway.
Yeah, well, there is a HAARP facility right there. There's a HAARP facility. If you look at that shot of the Norway spiral, you can see a blue beam coming up from the hill. There's a HAARP facility on the other side of that hill. So it's very, very likely that was something to do with HAARP. There's a HAARP facility in Western Australia. There's HAARP facilities all over the planet. The main one is in Alaska. That's the main control center, but I'm sure they're all linked up in some way. You know, I haven't done a great deal of research into HAARP, I must admit. I know the basics, but I know there are a large number of facilities and they're dotted all over the planet.
I guess we should stop and touch back briefly on the pedophile rings again. Those seem to be popping up like mushrooms everywhere, or at least the evidence of them seems to be popping up everywhere. A few years ago there was one that popped up in Belgium. We've had Senator John DeCamp, or former Senator John DeCamp, expose one connected with the Franklin banking scandal in the Midwest in the United States. We now have this popping up in Scotland. I expect that likely there have been or will be one exposed anytime soon in Australia, and I just wanted to get your opinion on how we deal with these sort of things.
Well, this is a really important issue, I believe. As you say, these seem to be infiltrated into almost all countries, and all governments seem to be involved. Very much religious institutions are involved in these things. The Holly Greig case in Scotland has just been brought to my attention. I intend on making a film about the Holly Greig case. I find it quite shocking that there were sheriffs involved, and it's the whole incident is being covered up by the Scottish Attorney General. I think it's really shocking. This goes very deep, and these are some of the most polarised people on earth, people that would do this sort of thing. These are people that have gone to that fear energy, as I said, gone to that control energy and that totally polarised energy, and it becomes an addiction for them. It really does. Ultimately, as I always say, I think that ultimately these people need healing more than they need hurting. But there's very little hope for a lot of these individuals. I think that people who molest children and who abuse disabled kids the way we've seen in the Holly Greig case, there really is no hope for these people. And I find that it's very hard to excuse the actions of these people. I really try to love all that I can, and I do love all that I can, and I do believe these people need healing more than hurting, but you get to a stage where you really, you do feel like grabbing some of these people and doing some not so pleasant things to them because of what they do to these children. This is such an important issue. It's really got to be addressed, and I don't know how deep it would go in Australia, but I'm sure it exists because I think it exists in most countries. I recently mentioned on a radio show the amount of abuse that's been happening to children in Victoria just with electroconvulsive therapy. 18,000 children given electroconvulsive therapy in Victoria just in 1 year between 2007 and 2008, and I consider this to be child abuse, and I'm sure it goes a lot deeper. I'm sure there is all sorts of abuse that happens in this country. I think it's rife in all countries, and I think it's something that we have to stop sweeping under the carpet. It's very often it's swept under the carpet, you know, as we've seen with the Catholic Church. The church will simply move ministers around after they've committed these crimes. They'll move them to a different parish, and they still continue their crimes. And when we see governments involved, like we've seen in Scotland, and like we saw with the Larry King case in and the Boys Town abuse that was going on in the United States, this stuff cannot be swept under the carpet. All of these people need to be held accountable. All of these people need to be exposed. They very much need to be exposed. And it doesn't matter what their position of government is. You know, what they say protects all of these people is national security. But that's a fictitious view of national security. People have forgotten what national security actually is. People have forgotten that the people of the nation are the nation. It's not the politicians. They're not the nation. It's the people of Australia that make up Australia. It's the people of America that make up America. They are the nation of America. And so national security should mean that these people are secure. But it's been twisted into protecting the criminals that are in power. If you say anything that might expose anything to do with corruption by the government, oh, you can't speak about that, national security. Well, no, it's national insecurity. It's making sure the people of the nation are not secure by not exposing these criminals in government. These criminals absolutely need to be exposed, and people need to understand what national security is, and police who comply with legislation that says they cannot touch members of parliament or members of government, these people are degrading national security. These police officers are... The first thing they need to do is go and arrest the people that created that legislation. These police officers are supposed to protect society, and defending elitist corruption is not protecting society. You know, so the first thing, if I was a police officer and someone gave me legislation that said that for some reason I can't go and arrest the Prime Minister, I'd go and arrest the person who gave me that legislation. That's the first thing I do as a police officer, because the person who wrote that legislation is subverting the course of justice, and it's not acceptable. And if I was actually standing to protect the people of my nation, that's what I'd do. Any police officer that doesn't do that is not worth a pinch of salt. He isn't worth a pinch of anything, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and you find often that in addition to just the simple atrocity of, you know, the torture of children and the pedophilia and that sort of thing, that there's an even deeper and darker agenda behind the abuse of children, which is the creation of mind-controlled slaves, the splitting intentionally of people's psyches until they become multiple personality disorder, so that these personalities can be programmed, the creation of Manchurian candidates, of sex slaves and that sort of thing.
Absolutely, all of that goes on. All of the above absolutely goes on, and even darker things, the harvesting of adrenal glands in children. Apparently, there's a great, and this is pretty sick, but apparently there's one of the most popular things is adrenal glands from prepubescent boys. You know, once a boy's reached puberty, apparently the adrenaline changes, and they like to totally terrify these children, completely terrify them, and harvest the adrenaline from the glands on their back while they're being terrified. They skin these children alive. I mean, it's really, really shocking. Some of the reports I've heard are absolutely shocking, and people need to understand that this goes on. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is a reality. There are thousands and thousands of children that go missing every year. They're never ever found again. Where do these children go? 3 million children disappear from Africa every year. Some of them are taken as slaves to work in coffee plantations and chocolate plantations, but a lot of them aren't. Where do these children go? 250,000 American children go missing every year. Where do these children go? They're never found again.